Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. The January 6th Select Committee was handed a present on the eve of the first public hearing. U.S. District Judge David Carter ordered that Attorney John Eastman had to turn over additional documents. This was before the very first hearing took place. Eastman tried to claim that the documents were attorney-client privileged communications, but Judge Carter had already ruled that Trump and Eastman, quote, likely committed obstruction of an official proceeding and conspiracy to defraud the United States. And so you can't hide documents. Even if they were privileged communications, if the documents are evidence of a crime, you can't hide them. In total, Eastman was trying to shield 599 files, and Judge Carter agreed that 440 of them were irrelevant to the Select Committee's investigation, but he said the other 159 had to be turned over immediately. And the judge noted in his ruling, quote, in an email on December 22nd, 2020, an attorney with the Trump legal team referred to the January 6th strategy as a known plan to 8 other people. 2 days later, Dr. Eastman explained that the worst case for the plan was receiving a court decision that constrained Vice President Pence's authority to reject electors. Dr. Eastman and President Trump's plan to stop the count was not only established by early December, it was the ultimate goal that the legal team was working to protect from that point forward. So based on this new evidence, Judge Carter has determined that their alleged criminal conspiracy started at least 1 full month prior to the counting of the Electoral College votes. Judge Carter states, quote, the previously disclosed documents indicate that Dr. Eastman and President Trump's plan to disrupt the joint session was fully formed and actionable as early as December 7, 2020. On that day, Dr. Eastman forwarded a memo explaining why January 6 was the, quote, hard deadline that was critical to the result of this election for the Trump campaign. A week later, on December 13, President Trump's personal attorney received a more robust analysis of January 6's significance, which was potentially the first time members of President Trump's team transformed a legal interpretation of the Electoral Count Act into a day-by-day plan of action. And then the judge also found that Trump's legal team discussed the idea of filing a legal action. This was what he alluded to in that previous statement, to ask the courts to decide if then Vice President Mike Pence had the legal authority to refuse to certify the Electoral College votes. However, they ultimately determined that they had a, quote, near zero chance of success in DC courts. So they ruled out legal action because they didn't think they were going to win, and they didn't want it to, quote, tank the January 6th strategy. In his ruling, Judge Carter wrote, quote, the Trump legal team chose not to seek recourse in court. Instead, they forged ahead with a political campaign to disrupt the electoral count. Lawyers are free not to bring cases. They are not free to evade judicial review to overturn a democratic election. So Eastman and others knew that what they were doing was not legally sound. They knew that the courts would almost certainly rule against them. And they knew that that would show the world that what they were doing was illegitimate and that Pence didn't have the power to overturn the election. So they decided instead oh, we'll just lie. We'll just lie to Trump supporters and his minions in Congress, and we're going to pretend that Pence holds all the power. So if their plan failed, as it did, it would be all of Pence's fault, right? They could pin it all on him, which they did, which of course led to psycho Trump supporters wanting to hang him that day. And now we know that he stated that Pence deserved it if they were going to hang him. These people are sociopathic monsters. One other interesting detail found in Judge Carter's decision is the fact that Eastman gave presentations for the supporters of a conservative group. And those presentations were often titled, quote, "Ground Game Following November 4 Election Results." Also, a sitting member of Congress who wasn't named in this judge's decision, but the sitting member of Congress also gave a presentation to this group to, quote, "discuss the plan to challenge the electors in the House of Representatives." And another presentation was given by a Donald Trump elector, one of these fake electors who also wasn't named. But the judge also noted that Eastman reached out to the state legislators in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona, and he urged them to decertify Biden's electors and to instead certify Trump electors and send them instead. And he did this in the first 2 weeks of December. So this was after more than 60 courts had reviewed Trump's election fraud lawsuits and said no merit. And this was after Trump's own Attorney General, Bill Barr, the guy who willingly lied for him about the Mueller report, conducted an investigation into all of these election fraud fantasies and found there's no there. There's no substantial voter fraud that would have changed this election. If Eastman doesn't lose his law license and go straight to jail without collecting $200, there is absolutely no justice in this country. Anyway, guys, I'll let you know when I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.